So last week was the first week since 2015 where two women directed wide release films. Those were The Spy Who Dumped Me by Susanna Fogel and The Darkest Minds by Jennifer Yuh Nelson. I was able to get to The Spy Who Dumped Me last week, and unfortunately, like the weekend, obviously. Fortunately, I wasn't able to make it to The Darkest Minds until today, so I'm on its second week box office, I guess. And honestly, I probably would not have seen this film if it didn't have Jennifer Yuh Nelson as the director, because I really love her work with Kung Fu Panda. But then I saw the cast, and I also quite like Amandla Stenberg. I've seen her in several things now, and Harris Dickinson, who is the Dickinson, who is like the male lead in this. He is in Beach Rats. If you have not seen Beach Rats, that came out last year. Go see that one. It's very good. So this film is a science fiction YA thriller based on a YA thriller released in 2012. I guess I haven't seen enough YA to realize how dark all of these movies are. I know they're all dystopias, but there's a lot of death and things in this movie that I was like, it must be because I haven't seen any of the other ones, and they're just as violent apparently, and I've just missed this entire strain of violent YA dystopians where people die. But I honestly, I feel like that's more true to life, having them all be full of people dying, because that's what happens, and that's what would happen. And but seeing that violence towards children is kind of rough. But so at work, I've been doing a lot of interesting look at sort of generational changes, because we're about to come into Gen Z, right? Gen Z is in college, and Gen Z is who this is aimed at, even though the writer was a millennial. But the millennials sort of can see where the Gen Zs are coming, right? And this film, I guess, and probably maybe all of the other YAs that I haven't seen, are reflecting where millennials are seeing the future headed, and the future that the Gen Z is heading into. And I felt like this film really hit a lot of moments that fit nicely into that generation's sort of world they've grown up in, right? They grew up in a world where there's homeland security everywhere. They grew up in a world full of war. They grew up in a world, a war that they can't even really understand. They grew up in a world where they don't trust their government more than anyone has ever not trusted their government, right? And this film, when they've grown up with various strange, diseases, and now we have bacteria, viruses that are, resistant to medicine, and that's terrifying. So when I was a teen, this is going to be very rambly because these are the thoughts I had when I was driving home. When I was a teen, a lot of the sort of sci-fi films were about technology that was coming and changing things. You had Gattaca, and you had Minority Report, and yes, Minority Report's based on a book from forever ago, but you had things like that were mostly about technology and the way technology was going to change and take over. And a lot of what you're seeing now is both either bioweapons or viruses and the government. And I mean, there's always been sort of the government, but more so, I feel, in the last few years. And so you got a film like this where it's a little of everything, and it's all terrifying, but it's all almost not that unbelievable. That makes it even more terrifying. So the high plot is that roughly 90% of the children in America, so people under the age of 18, have died in this pandemic, this neuropandemic. So it's a neuro disorder. It's killed all these people. And the 10% that are still alive have changed into these sort of I don't want to say mutant, because then you'll start thinking X-Men, and I hate comparing things, but people with powers and of various ranked by various dangers, and it's similarly to the way that we rank like terrorist, um, activity, and whether we're in like red alert or whatever. Um, and then they all get rounded up and put into camps. And obviously, that's something that America has done. So that's not, not just of children, but of, threats, right? We're not immune to doing that to our own people. What's terrifying in the movie is the way in which the fear of of this change has created a lack of empathy for the children in most of the adults that they work with. Not all, but most. And I can't help but think that, and I haven't read the book, so I don't know, but I can't help but think that some of the impetus on writing a story like this, especially knowing that it came out in 2012, so it was being worked on during the rise in school shootings in America, I can't help but think that there's at least some sort of parallel between the way in which children are dying in this country and the elders refuse to reform laws that could save them. Um, and not just the people in charge, but numerous regular everyday people that are like, don't take our guns. But they're killing children, and here we have a similar sort of lack of empathy for the children. Um, so I feel like there's a lot of things the film is saying and the story is saying that don't quite make up for how the film is made. So unfortunately, it's not. It's got cinematography that's not. It's that over dark cinematography that it's very in right now, and I don't like it. Um, but the core four children have really great like friend group chemistry, and I always enjoy a good friend group. So they're played by Amandla Stenberg, Harris Dickinson, Skyland Brooks, and Maya Chech. And another aspect of the film that I thought was a really good step forward was there was quite a bit of diversity within the film that didn't feel staged, and it didn't feel unnatural, and it felt like what you would really see if you had 10% of this country's children um, grouped together. So I liked that. I liked the chemistry between Amandla Stenberg and Harris Dickinson. I forgot to finish the story. So she is 10 when this hits. Her powers come about. She manages to convince, using her powers, hide herself as a low threat child. But then when she's found out through some testing that they do, she escapes with some adults that she doesn't know if she can trust, and then she ends up with kids, and you're always going to trust kids, and so they all go off together, and then they try to find this like hidden camp, and that part kind of reminded me of Fahrenheit 451, where you have to find someone like you and trust them, and then you go off and try to find the book people. It's kind of what was happening here. But then you can't always trust other kids. That's truth. So like you don't know who to trust. You don't have any family. You're trying to build a family, trying to build relationships, but you can't trust anybody. And I feel like it felt true. Not that I feel like I'm sounding very depressed right now. This was just a really dark movie, and I have a lot of thoughts, and I don't know how to put them all together because it made me sad. How dark it was. It kind of made me sad in a way that Wall-E did, where Wall-E was so close to where we're headed that I haven't watched it in, what was that, 10 years, because I don't need to watch it again. It's all going to be in my head forever. One thing that I did want to say in terms of Jennifer Yuh Nelson as a director is, in particular, Kung Fu Panda 3 was really about finding your unique gift in the world and how your gift fits in with other people's gifts and how together we can move forward as a people, celebrating our differences and how that enhances us, right? And this film separates all the kids based on their abilities and keeps them all separate. But what you learn as the film goes on is that we're all, you have to master your whatever it is that you are skilled at, and then work with everyone else's skills to build a team and a family and a have forward momentum in life. And I can see why a story like this would be something she would want to tell, as it fits really nicely into that sort of oeuvre that she's created of really helping children understand that their unique qualities are of value, and our differences aren't something to be ashamed of. They're something to be proud of. So I enjoyed that aspect of the film. Lastly, I want to mention Harris Dickinson again, because he's so good, and he's going to be in the new Maleficent movie, and I'm very excited because I find him endlessly watchable. I also find Amandla Stenberg endlessly watchable too. They're really unique performers, and I enjoyed watching them together. And the ending of this movie made me like cry, and also I'll probably, like, if they make the sequels, I'll watch them. And now I kind of want to read them. I've read a lot of YA novels this year. I'm just reliving my like teen years as a 30 something. Gotta do what you gotta do. So I don't know, if you're burnt out on YA dystopia, you probably won't like this film. But if you're not, and you want to support female directors and interesting young youth actors, then check it out. Come up with your own opinions. A lot of the reviews I read were very dismissive, because it felt like everything else, but it's like every movie feels like everything else. I don't know. Then they also didn't seem, they were all very surface level. I didn't see a lot of discussion of the way it reflects the current mindset of a lot of young people, and how having a film this dark, and a bunch of films this dark, how does that make us look as a society? If I don't know, when I was 13, they did not have movies like this. They had Harriet the Spy, I don't know. Got a lot of thoughts. So anyways, this is Jennifer Yuh Nelson's The Darkest Minds. I have a lot of thoughts. It's not a perfect film, but I definitely think it's an interesting one, and has some interesting things to say, and does set things up in an interesting way. Yeah. So check it out. See what you think. It's definitely not like the greatest, but it's fascinating in its own way.